molecules all over the universe. Wait a second, I forget which side. And I haven't had to wear hearing aids in like a week and a half. Where you're sitting right now.
Moved down from
Where I'm sitting right now?
New York to Washington.
Somewhere in Kansas. No, I don't know where.
Well, I left Kansas 2 weeks ago, so it's still there.
No, it's not. That's right. They advertise as such, so it must be true because nobody's debating it. Was that a Jeopardy question? I remember hearing that somewhere. I don't remember where.
I'm from that
Gotcha.
big old black in the center of the street.
Overdriving it?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, this had been an actual emergency. You would have been notified where to tune to for additional information. This is only a
Yeah, these are just the mics, so come on, start talking.
How are you?
Talk a little bit loud.
You know Dr. Hart?
Me?
Yeah, if you talk like that, you know what. We got new ones coming tomorrow.
I'm just a bit.
First time with them.
So, were you at the gym meeting? You did go? Okay. Of course.
Yeah, actually, Ken showed up a bit late, but we managed to pull off a meeting. I was hoping that Patrick has decided he's gonna retire.
Retire after having served how long?
Yeah, well, he claims he's got kids.
You got everything he needed, right?
It's half price.
That's actually somebody said that.
That's what it is. We'll take half price. Less than half price, you feel guilty.
So John, I looked at John,
When she
was sitting next to me, so I looked over at him, and he just went like this.
So you realize that this is principally new. I heard it, the Nicholas Saturday, we were doing cleanup,
Well,
community cleanup.
I'll keep it, all right, keep it down to under Guinness records.
It's not good.
Yeah, I've waited an
It won't get better
entire
over
year,
time.
and I've got some things I want to say about Councilmember Simpson.
Uh-oh.
Just takes forever to, it is something last year, it's just like, it was more of a,
I'm sure you run farther than I do.
oh, you were really, my deal was, anytime I had to like, it was, anytime I had to like turn the door knob, if I turned it with my, I'd be like,
Six people had set up the meeting, I just said.
hey there. Oh, tearing my house apart. Oh, yeah, we got a, yeah, we got a, hard.
Good to see you. Councilmember, I'm calling you around Councilmember, why should it be so good? Dr. Allen.
Yeah, they're right here. Oh, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Very few.
He saw me come in and
No, he's in.
And I said, oh, and I put him in my, like, I had this to-do file.
Well, I would guess you get to see him a lot.
What else was it?
anytime I need to.
Bills.
Oh, cool.
Well, part of the pile is still on the table.
James, Mark,
Yeah, he
You
should
know,
be.
it's like,
Yeah, if I.
James?
If I'd seen it, I would.
Mark?
No, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. I figured you were busy.
I would,
looking,
that would have been my first.
I think it went with the, I think it went with the garbage. I think the,
People accuse me of, people accuse
I
me of
just have to
not,
remember to turn it up after we
when I
leave.
was.
people accuse me of not, not ever listening, hearing them call me, I never turn it on.
And it was still folded or something.
I take it 3 days later, oh my God, it's been muted this whole time.
That's what's really
I just
happening.
get a vibration,
When
that's
I
all.
dumpstered it the other day for something, I threw out a check.
I don't have that sheet that,
Check.
I never stepped out.
oh, it's actually.
I went up, right, see, I went up and I met with the,
I had $99. So yeah,
council
hey,
general.
same thing, I'm like,
Hey, where are those, Friday?
We can't take credit for
Put it
that.
in 35 minutes back.
Well, yeah. Oh, sure.
first pile,
Wonderful.
I don't think it's
The whole
anything
family
bad.
was gonna mention you in that.
That was a lot of fun.
You know,
I was stopped before because
For a 30-minute
now we gotta
meeting,
go.
I might just get it off
although
Skype.
that doesn't affect us yet. I imagine that's probably gonna be an issue come the, turn of the
Asian political and business culture is face to face.
Understood. All right, understood. Okay.
And
And, you know, if I get to the point where I feel like I'm kind of sucking in
Yes.
Yes, yep.
That's even through somebody might have to do, I did a meeting in China,
Give some testimony on something.
1 to 2 hour meetings in China,
What?
3 days,
Yeah.
Huh?
Group homes.
not more than 3 hours.
I'm going on to
Because it had to be.
Because it has to be.
Makes sense.
Really, I was like,
When they
well,
come
I
to
go,
the Chinese,
the only
always
thing I remember is that it
Well,
was,
you know, we were a committee that put
For
together.
example, in
I
Afghanistan,
said,
whenever we
I
negotiated
said, is it going?
Yeah.
I said,
we never spoke.
But feel free to jump
I
in too
wanted
if you guys have got
we
any.
would say, I think some food would
So I
be nice.
written a pile, and I go,
Sometimes
it'll be there, I don't have to
Work
do
through
it
somebody who
today.
speaks English when they come
So I'll put it in this pile, and when I
I'm
go
sorry,
to that
but
pile, it'll be there on Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, I must have.
Jason,
I didn't, I don't know.
Yes.
And so now I'm thinking like,
So what?
poor guy.
that, and just the,
I don't know if you.
Well, I'd like to call this study session of Lakewood City Council for Monday, June 25th to order. The first item of business is a joint public safety advisory committee meeting. We are now punting to Charles Ames, the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. Today I'm joined by Mark Pila. I'm joined by Colonel James Hairston and also Dr. Alan Hart, members of the committee, the Public Safety Advisory Committee. We were assigned last year rail safety, My Lakewood 311 education, disaster preparedness, I-5 crime corridor, fireworks safety, domestic violence. And after I give you my statement, if you'd like to focus on any one aspect of that, we'll be happy to tell you what we know. We introduced a discussion on group homes largely through member Alan Hart's input. Much done the prior year left us less needing to be accomplished this period. However, that freed us up to familiarize ourselves more with our bylaws and concentrate on this following year's work plan and outreach. We continue our paper reduction effort successfully, still in progress, and we also followed up with UAV implementation, and work continues on that. I see Officer Lee was here a second ago, and we talked, and he showed me some amazing stills, some amazing images where certainly that improved their investigation. We continue board education by engaging guest speakers. We came very close to having a school safety presentation, but it kind of fell apart, and I hope that we will take that up again in the future. Water quality and security was something that was on my radar, but kind of slipped away, and I hope we bring that back in again. We're pretty big on our neighborhood association outreach, and I can give you particulars on that if that's important. We also engaged a couple of groups, Team Tillicum, for an event that they wanted to hold a run over in their neighborhood, and also Project Peace, which originated in Tillicum and was an outreach here, and was of interest to our youth council member. And we encouraged and fostered public input, those being a couple of examples. I can go back over the assignments if the council desires.
I think we need to go back over them. Do you want to report on any positive results that you obtained?
Well, I'd hope that just by the sheer act of us touching it would be an improvement, but rail safety, unfortunately, the DuPont accident came upon us before we got very far on that. Chief Unford was very helpful in giving us a presentation regarding that. I had hoped that perhaps we might have a member from Amtrak address our group, but that didn't seem to be that critical. My Lakewood 311, on the handout you've received, it shows that 42 requests per week with the My Lakewood 311 app. Let's get down to that. Disaster preparedness, I think also we got another presentation from Chief Unford on that, since he's closely affiliated with the EMD. Preparedness. I-5 crime corridor, I completely dropped the ball on that. That is something that we kicked around a couple meetings, but I'm afraid we just couldn't get a handle on exactly what we needed to do for that. Short of us going business to business and saying, have you been affected adversely more than other businesses that are not located near I-5. I think that is definitely something we're going to want to put at the top of our work plan, at the top of our to-do list for this coming fiscal year. Fireworks safety, it's hard. A year ago, I coincidentally asked the West Pierce Fire Department about that, and then also got a report this year that indicated that there were not many more calls received the month before July 4th or the month after July 4th for 2 consecutive years than there were on the day of July 4th as well. And then all I can add for domestic violence is that according to the stats that we saw with the new 4th degree domestic violence, strangulation, and children being involved in domestic violence, just in the short period of time that that was invoked, those charges, those instances dropped like 80% from the first year to the second year.
Any other members of the committee have any comments?
I think the chairman overlooked one thing. We also spent an evening with Sergeant John Fraser going over the boating safety program that the police department has going, what kind of issues they run into, for instance, and that tied in with our interest in park safety, to find out, is this becoming are any of these issues becoming coming up on the list of priorities that we really need to talk about? Do we need to do anything about them? And of course, he also didn't mention that one of our members was instrumental in helping to get a new neighborhood association going, the North Lakewood Neighborhood Association. And he was interested in that when he joined PSAC and asked the advice of several of us on the committee about how to do that, and has gotten the organization going. Well, I think those are the only things I know that got overlooked.
Questions or comments from council? Ms. Branstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned the topic of school safety, but beyond that, given instances this year, did the committee discuss, or could it discuss going forward, actions that, and roles the city might play around the issue of bullying amongst young people and at schools? And while that isn't necessarily a school safety issue, it's a much more public type thing because it spreads out and I guess it's communicated electronically additionally to physically being there as it might have been many, many years ago when I was in school. But that I think that there is an interest in the community to see what is it that the community as a whole, the city as one of the major entities in the community, could be able to do around that. And again, so I would suggest that maybe as you start the new year, you get a new youth council member. I don't know whether your youth council member will be continuing, and I don't necessarily mean to imply that solving that issue is a role of the police department. I look at you to look at that in a more holistic way. At that, what could the community do, and what might we ask and encourage and try to cause to happen in the community, both attitudinally and in terms of actions. I think to be able to go and do that. I mean, I'd certainly not like to have an annual incident, okay, of the severity that we experienced this year, to be able to go and do that.
I would certainly be interested in getting the student liaison to the committee to input on the perception of that group on this issue and contribute to trying to work that issue a little bit. I think it'd be good for the student member to be involved, a little bit more involved.
Having been president of Harrison Prep's PTO just a few months ago, that's a fire in my belly as well. It seems like there are solutions, both far-flung and local as well. Having had a student attend certainly a world-class institution that doesn't have to worry about that quite as much, but it doesn't mean that that it's visible. It's an excellent point as well, and now I'm attending Pierce, and so safety is something that is an issue and a concern at all levels. I got a little bit of pushback when I reached out to Clover Park School District, just because, of course, at the time I had a concern about school safety. I was not ready to make any accusations. I was simply poised for any sort of a point that they wanted to make and said, yes, perhaps there are concerns, but these are what we're addressing. And so if the council wishes, then we can continue to go in that direction, but it's something that we've kind of so far looked at from the outside.
Well, I do think that it's an area where somewhat like homelessness, where we're looking for ideas and possible solutions that can make a difference. And going into it knowing that there are no silver bullets to fix it. But there may be some profitable things that the committee could research and do, and perhaps there are some other advisory committees and some others to consult with in the community. I mean, it's certainly not looking to do this, and it will be a similar comment that I would make if we were doing when we meet with the Promise Board, for instance, and we did talk with the Community Services Board around it. But I think it's an issue that trying to put as many minds to work on would be a good thing.
Is there a new, I guess there's a new administration, at least an interim school board superintendent who's coming on board. So perhaps there's going to be a change in direction or someone to increase the visibility in that specific area. I don't know. But we do know there is a change, so not sure what effect it's going to have.
Yeah, well, I'm on the city council and I'm not on the school board, and so I don't want to speak to their view of the matter going on off. You know, I would say, given the seriousness of what happened, every organization that has policies around this could do with a reevaluation of them, to take a look to see what else can we do, or what could we do different that would be better.
I think reaching out to the school board is the tricky situation. Mm-hmm. So, go for it, but I think it's a challenge.
I'd be cautious as to that, but I would be interested in the input of the youth council and their representative and the collaboration with the Lakewood's Promise. One of the promises relates to a safe environment. So I think that's the way to start and see if there's any obvious area of input. I'm pretty much, I personally realize how out of touch I am because although I'm married to a teacher of 40 years and watched things progress from the outside, I was in the classroom, and when I was in the classroom, bullying kind of took care of itself, but through methods that are no longer acceptable. I don't know what the magic bullet is, but I'd like to hear what the contemporary thoughts from the youth council folks are and what the collaboration things.
The youth council's gonna look at it when they get back in the fall. I also think that we could start as a body, because clearly there's a level of concern here. There is a legal definition of bullying that the schools work under. So sometimes what parents perceive as bullying is not considered bullying. So when we're kind of bandying about this term, that committees should be looking at bullying.
Use it broadly.
Yeah, what you're bullying and my bullying may not be the school's bullying. They work under a law that defines bullying. So we gotta decide. So I believe there's somebody at the school district that we can bring in and who can define that for us, so that we're all on the same page before we just start, why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing that? Or why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that? So I think maybe that's where we should go in that regard.
One of the reasons that I joined the Public Safety Advisory Committee was having heard of two different bullying occasions. I'm holding in my hand a police incident about Kiana Anduza. I'm sorry, I can't find her name. Yeah, I'm sorry, Maritza Kiana Anduza. And at the time I thought there must be something we can do about it. If it's got to be, if you see something, say something. That if kids look past it, then they are an accomplice after the fact. I'm sorry to inject bias into it. Without a doubt, it seems like there's something that can be done.
So I would just like to make a comment. I was wondering how the committee feels. I think that if you look at your lofty goals, you have something January, February, March. I'm wondering if you would feel more comfortable picking 2 or 3 issues and actually concentrating on those issues, bringing forward some ideas and solutions instead of trying this big spread. And that's just a comment for you to think about and chat about. But I think, having something for every single month is a lofty goal, and I don't think you actually resolve anything. I think you touch on it, and then you move on it, and nothing gets resolved. That's just a comment.
Yeah, maybe along that line, it'd be good to know what the committee thinks are the top 3 priorities, as opposed to a laundry list of all of them to go through. But
And I suppose I should speak to that. Obviously, we're sensitive to the council's input in as much as you're the ones that are going to have to live with, I guess I could put it a different way. You're the ones that are going to have to answer those questions. So we're looking for missions. We're looking for directives from the council. Obviously, we've all got our pet projects. I agree with Councilmember Barth that, I felt that I wanted to make sure that we didn't have dead air, that we didn't have questions that could have been answered, at least could have been addressed, at least ask the questions. But that's true that we're not going to solve all of the world's problems in a single meeting. Therefore, probably would be a good idea for us to focus on some pet projects. Lakewood is an amazing community. I am so thrilled to be a resident and to be an active part of it. And I guess now, and I know that what problems Lakewood has, the PD is on top of it. No question about it. I feel privileged to be in the position that I am in, and looking forward to how this committee is going to hold up that torch, maintain that momentum. So I myself would love to see school safety carried forward. I certainly want to be mindful of us not stepping on anybody's toes. I'd be happy to take, yes.
I think there's two things we want to not let drop. One of them is the adult housing, which I know the city is taking some action that hopefully we'll get some resolve in that. And the other one is the rail safety. We've still got the problem of these trains going through here at 80 miles an hour. And those two issues, I think, are just hanging there now. And I think we need to keep those on our calendar so we can address them if need be again.
I didn't see a need to bring it up today, but I am curious as to how soon we're going to be affected by the funding issue at Western Washington Hospital, if that's a fiscal year thing, if that's a calendar year thing. I'm aware that 9 clinics are going to open across the state with the intent to take some of the overflow from the hospital. And I don't know that we can do anything about that today, but I think that is something that we're going to want to address by the end of the year.
Actually, they indicate they intend to make up the funds out of general fund revenue. It's $53 million out of a $1 billion budget. And that will carry them over to the next legislative session. And the legislature has underfunded mental health programs forever. And this is just another area where they're underfunded. So I don't, it's not, they don't, there was no indication they're going to cut any staff because they already can't hire the staff they're authorized to employ. So that would be the most direct impact on Lakewood. Secondary impact is the interim pressure at DSHS from the administration to push people who are not forensic patients out of Western State, and that's what the problem we're seeing in part with the adult family homes is attempt to place people in facilities that were not meant to help them. So,
Didn't the governor, in his statement, say something about that? Wanted to continue or expand the program to put people into environments where they're closer to their friends and relatives? I think it's where you put it, like maybe in our neighborhood.
I think that was what was said.
Yeah. Our neighborhoods.
Well, I on several of these issues, adult family homes, the safety of young people, the homelessness, the rail safety. A month ago, or earlier this month, we approved a strategic plan with some goals for the city to be able to go and do that. And within public safety being one of the main 5 themes of that, there is a theme about we want Lakewood to be safe, okay, and be able to go and do that. But the other part of that was, and another goal in that is that we want the businesses and the people who live in Lakewood to feel safe. And so, so there is the reality and the perception. And to the extent that on each of these issues, when you look at them and you see that there is a gap between reality and perception, recommendations about how to close that gap Okay, and ideally, we would want to close it from perception more towards reality than than the other way, in other words. But, you know, that would be, you know, another, as Councilmember Barth says, would be a theme that as you had an issue and you tracked and you interacted with others in the community and you got a sense for that, and that recognizing that we're looking for recommendations about what we as a city can do from you. We're not looking for you to actually solve these things.
On the two items that were brought up with respect to rail safety and adult-family homes, I would respectfully offer that I don't think it would be a good use of the committee's time, because the council is well informed, has taken virtually every action it can possibly take, and has taken an advocacy position that's extremely unpopular with both DSHS in one instance and Department of Transportation and Amtrak in another. So we've advocated, we've gone to the media, and we've sued them in each case. And there's really no plan, there's no other avenue for attempting to find a remedy. It's a political advocacy case at this point. It's not something that the city has a power. We've been told by the court we don't have any power over railroads. We've been told by DSHS that we don't have any power to make them follow their own rules. And we're challenging that in court. So there's, sending it to committee is a cop-out on the part of the city. It's like the city council saying, well, go study this some more. Well, we're up to here with studying it. As the commentator said, we're mad as hell and we're not gonna take it anymore, but there's really nothing as far as a plan, I think, that we haven't explored.
I think I would like to, I mean, this is my personal opinion again, but I would like to see us concentrate on, or have you concentrate on the school safety issues and somehow working with the school board in the two avenues that we talked about. Not directly with the school board, but in the two avenues that we spoke about before. And then I would also like to see you reach out to the neighborhood associations and draw those people in closer to what you do. I know having a representative show up at each meeting, that was a great first step because they didn't even know you existed. So I think that's a great first step. The next step is to draw them into your work, you know, what's important to them in the community that you can concentrate on and bring to us, because you're supposed to be the middle, you know, you're supposed to be between us and them. So take your message to them and bring their message back to us.
Mayor?
Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of build on what I've heard, and by the way, thank you very much for your report tonight. I like what Council Member Barth has said, that you want to focus on things. The neighborhood associations, I think, is an excellent idea. I was thinking here traffic and park safety. And that's my way of coming around and saying, and this is going to sound odd coming from me since I've been very critical of the Clover Park School District, I would leave that one alone. And the reason I say that is I have looked at their training material for their faculty and their staff with regard to bullying. It is extensive. And I think that is the idea, the phenomenon of bullying in the schools is something that they are best suited at this point to address. And I think, and again, it's just a suggestion, Charles, I'm not telling you what to do, but I think if you want to beat your head against a wall, then go right ahead and talk to the school board. If you want to get some work done, leave them the hell alone and work on other projects. They do have a process in place. It is extensive. Every faculty member there, every administrator has to take a series of courses every 6 months on this very issue. So I know not a month ago, I think I was railing about this very subject. And yet, I think we should let them, elected officials all, look after their own house, and we do what we need to do to pave the way for them to do that. But I would suggest just staying away from the school safety issue if I were you.
So,
Thank you.
Councilmember Simpson, are you saying not to even go to the Promise Board or
No,
talk to the
no,
youth
they can
council?
talk, but I mean to go in, if this committee is going to try to make this their issue, one of their 3 or 4 top issues, I think your time is better served doing something else. Those individuals have a sworn responsibility, and I learned it from their very own lecture series, public safety, the safety of every child in that school. We can talk about it, yes, in a general sense, but when we start to work in a specific sense, I think at that point we have crossed a line that I don't think at this point we should be crossing.
Well, a lot of there's no fine line between being in school and out of school with respect to the relationship of youth between themselves and others in the community. And to the extent we look at it, I think it should be outside the in loco parentis time that the students are in school. And maybe there are options in the community that we can explore that are ancillary and complementary. What youth services or youth activities are lacking that might help assist in creating a safe environment for everybody in the community. Is the problem of safety of students mitigated if they have some resources that they outside of school hours that they can go to that we don't have right now?
One of the things in their material is mentorship, and that would, what you just suggested would fit that perfectly. But the bulk of it comes down on what is going on in the 4 walls of that institution and how that is addressed. And I think that's what I mean about where we're making this distinction between what we can do out here on the outside of the school and what can be done inside. And once you're inside the school, I think that is their prerogative, that is their responsibility, and I think we should let them do it. It's just a suggestion, Charles, I apologize, I'm not telling you what to do.
Had, from the beginning, only hoped that at some point the school district, as president of the Springbrook Neighborhood Association, Kim Prentice appears at every single one of our meetings, keeps us updated on what is progressing. She always has great news, and I didn't see how perhaps once a year that something like that couldn't go before the committee as well. It's not that I'm looking to put heat under anybody's feet, just that the city, the committee, can be informed about things that may be of concern to the city. If the council sends a directive, obviously that's our top priority. But yeah, I did overreach a little bit by saying, now wait a second. What do we know about water quality? What do we know about rail safety? What do we know? And I'm happy to take direction from the city to sort of define those better or eliminate them for the reasons mentioned here.
Thank you.
I think you accomplished accomplish more if you just choose the top three.
Yeah, I think there's probably a consensus that we would like to see a prioritization. And then we can maybe meet again and talk about what paths to take in that prioritization. Just for example, I look at and I know that the time isn't a direct indicator, but, February 7th meeting, Lakewood 311, use of deadly force and human trafficking, all significant issues. And June 6th is prep for Summerfest. One would think that the first three are all more important to public safety than Summerfest outreach.
If I see 12 slots, somehow I feel obligated to fill those slots. And I suppose that with the input of the council, this will certainly make our job easier.
Any other comments from council? Okay.
I'm not sure when the 7th, so it's good.
Well, I would like to thank each of the members of the committee. It's kind of a thankless job, so I appreciate you showing up. And
yeah, we do appreciate your work. You have a lot of weighty issues, and in part because the council's asked you to take a broader look at safety of the community holistically instead of focusing only on a police department, which would be much easier. But safety comes in many forms, so it is more complex than just law enforcement. So thank you again, Mr. Polk.
So I'll ask a question. On the 1st of August, you have the neighborhood block watch programs. So something like that. Now, what's your plan of action?
This is an old program that has been carried forward. Let's see.
I think it's the second, I think the second Tuesday of August every year. And many of the city council members actually come around and see some of the community organizations in action and talk to them.
Oh, that's neighborhood night out.
Neighborhood
Okay.
night out. Okay. So and that's something that I know our community does quite religiously.
So is that something that, that would be something that you guys can investigate. I mean, I don't know of any neighborhood block watch programs that we have. Other parts of the county use Safe Streets.
It's part of the bylaws.
Some controversy between the two. One is an organization that's based on volunteers. The other is a not-for-profit. I mean, is that something you thought about pursuing and coming back with recommendations? Because I don't even know anything about neighborhood. I mean, we have neighborhood night out.
is that what you're talking about here?
James, you probably have to give a little more background.
Oh, he was looking at what he saw in the block watch programs. In our neighborhood, we talk about that, and Gail Connolly from the police department actually comes and talks to the people in our neighborhood about it. And we have actively set up different people within the neighborhood to be watch captains, if you want to call that, so that if there's anything that goes on, we quickly hit Facebook. We have an internal Facebook page for our community, and we make sure that people know that there's something going on and give them whatever warning we can. It's faster than email. We can put it on email, put it on Facebook, and people are talking about it within minutes on Facebook because they're always looking at their phones. And email takes a couple of days. So that's one of the ways that we stay active in our community. The fact that the gates are closed helps quite a bit too.
But I guess what we're asking is on August 1st, that's part of your meeting is to talk about reaching out to the different neighborhoods and doing what we do in Creekside?
Yeah, that was part of it, I think.
Okay.
That was what we
Yeah,
put together.
the Springbrook bylaws also calls for a block watch program as well, and I suppose uniting them and having the neighborhood associations talk to each other. At this point, there is no facility for that, And so I saw that as one possibility, perhaps to get the neighborhood associations under one umbrella, and a little cross chatter is not gonna hurt.
Well, and going back to my previous comment about reaching out to the neighborhood associations, you know, we have, the youth council has a rep on our board, and we have people that go out to the various neighborhood associations. Why don't we have one of the neighborhood association president or vice president ask them, invite them to be part of Public Safety Advisory Board and get them involved in that direction?
I'm sure they'd be happy to get that invite.
Anything else before I double your pay for the year? All right.
We do it for the love.
Well, thank you so much.
He doubles the pay for the
for-
love.
Yeah, try to keep it up to the same inflation factor. 100%. So thank you again for all the work you do and the work you're about to
Thank you,
do.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Skip was just getting into things, and it tends to be, bring in, every once in a while there's something serious, but usually it's bring in the cats and small dogs or some coyote.
Yeah, we get those two.
So we now move to a review of the first quarter 2018 financial report. Ms. Kraus.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
I'm just going to give some highlights, and then if you have questions. I'll start on page 7 of the packet, and this is the general and street fund summary. So overall, compared to 2017, revenues are up by $443,000, and compared to the year-to-date estimate for 2018, operating revenues are up by $660,000 or 6%. So the areas that are contributing to the increases on both sides, comparing to the 2017 year-to-date as well as the year-to-date estimate, is property tax, which is up, I'll compare that to the estimate. Compared to the estimate, property tax is up by $52,000 or 1.8%. Sales and use tax is up by $142,000 or 6.1%. And then we're also seeing increases in the sales tax for parks as well as the criminal justice. And both of those areas are up $16,000 for the criminal justice sales tax and $6,000 for the park sales tax. We're seeing increases in gambling tax of about $100,000 compared to the estimate. And development service fees are up by $255,000. So very, very busy. On the
How's that compare? Well, to what extent is some of that, if any, eaten up by contracted services that we've had to undertake because of the volume?
So that is accounted for. I don't have the exact dollar amount, and that usually occurs on the plan check side. So the way that it's set up currently, which we're reviewing, is when we hire a consultant to do the review, they get to keep a great, well, I shouldn't say great portion because I don't remember the percentages, but they get to keep a portion of that revenue, and that's just how the contract was set up for that.
But is it off the top, or is it, do we account for it by don't we account for it as revenue and then have an expense that is the portion that they keep?
Typically, that's how I would account for it, but I found out that that's not how it's being done. It's taken as a deduction from revenue, and that's why I said that we're going to be reviewing that process. So the numbers that you're seeing, I think the correct accounting is just as what you described, but the way that is happening is it's taken out of the revenue side of it.
So this is net?
Yes.
Mayor.
Mr. Bolton?
Ms. Kraus, the property tax, we're limited to 1% a year plus new construction. So, and I look at the 18 versus 17 actual, and it's up 7.5%. It was just the timing, people paying earlier, because it's not due till the end of April, right?
Right.
End of April.
Yeah.
We think it's just earlier.
So we'll get some of it just due to the 1% and then also the new construction. But yeah, we'll always have some fluctuation due to the timing.
Has has the reservoir of delinquent taxes bottomed out?
I don't have that stats with me. I looked at it, but I don't recall the numbers. We just published that for our comprehensive annual financial report, but I don't recall right off the top of my head. Some areas that we're seeing some decreases is in the utility tax. Compared to the year-to-date estimate, it's down by 48,000 or 3%. And I'll get into more details on those, but it's primarily on the energy side that we're seeing decreases, as well as the continued decline in the phone and cellular, as well as cable. So those are the areas that are down. I'll skip over to page 10. Here's the breakout of the areas that we're seeing increases and decreases. So we're seeing a slight decrease in the retail trade. $78,000 of that is due to the motor vehicle and parts dealers. But in 2017, we had what I'll call a one-time transaction. So there was a major sale with one of the businesses. And so it didn't happen in 2018, so we're seeing that decrease. Our services is up by $73,000, and that is in food services and drinking places, administrative and support services, and ambulatory healthcare services. I couldn't tell you specifically what is in that ambulatory right off the top of my head. We're seeing increases in construction by $10,000. Wholesale and information are both down, but we're also seeing increases on the finance, insurance, and real estate, primarily in the rental and leasing services. We've seen quite a bit of increase in the past couple of years, and the increase is starting to decline. On the next page, I just want to highlight on page 11, the top 10 taxpayers. You'll see a line item for Marketplace Fairness Act. We received $27,000 for that in first quarter. Okay, skipping over to page 14, this is the utility tax through March. I've already mentioned that the energy side, we're seeing a decrease, as well as cable, phone, and cellular. Okay. So on animal license, there was a question that came up during the year-end report, and that had to do primarily with the stats that we received from pet data showing the number of licenses that were issued by the different types. And in 2017, we had substantially more in pet licenses that were issued compared to 2016. We did a lot of research, and the bottom line is there was a timing difference. So in December 2015, there was about $12,000 that was receipted into January. So the data that was presented by Pet Data is based on the actual activity of the month. However, we don't get our revenues until 30 days later. So December's activity was high, we don't receive it until January, but we have accounted for 12 months of activities in each of the years. There was also some questions on how does this work with the Animal Humane Services contract. And in 2016 and 2017 contract, they get to retain 100% of the licenses that they sell, whether it be new or renewals, and that is net of any fees that is on these, that we pay to Pet Data. In 2000, and then they also get a rebate to their 16 and 17 contract, and that rebate amounted to $2,500 in each of the years of 16 and 17. In 2018, that contract changed, and they're no longer getting a rebate. Those numbers are just built into the amount that we agreed upon. Also included in the animal license, and this is just more informational, in 2016 we had $1,750 of revenue that were due to potential dangerous dogs. In 2017, that number was slightly lower at $1,000, and year-to-date in February, we have $1,000. Then there was a question of if they did the original license issuance, do they get to keep the renewals that come as part of that original? The answer is no. It's they get it one time. If somebody comes in, if I go into Humane Society and I get a license and it's a new license, they'll get to keep that fee. But if I don't come back to renew my license through Humane Society, they don't get to keep it. So,
Mr. Branstad.
In respect to this somewhat complicated relationship with the Humane Society, there seems to be a very real effort going on to decide whether the Humane Society is going to be our animal control contractor or whether there are other options out there to do that. So I would say that while you're explaining reality to us, we may be in a window of where we could think what we would like reality around this to be with, that would be with any new contract that we're going to do, since the Humane Society contract is ending, and we may contract with anyone. I mean, the council member Barth has got a little bit of space.
No more dogs.
I see. Oh, well, perhaps not. But if you could think about what you might input we would provide into any new contract negotiations to just make this more understandable and decide that it's not subject to a contractor manipulating.
Skipping over to page 23, this is on the alarm permits and fees, and we're seeing a substantial decline. I don't have an answer today on what that decline is, but basically through March, the 2018 versus 2017 is we're down by 52%. And some of the things that we're thinking about as we're talking about this in our executive leadership team was, maybe there are different options. Maybe people are not using the traditional, ADT and all of that, and they're going with the apps, or they're buying the cameras. Yeah.
Everybody's,
I've got Ring, I don't have, I actually took out my alarm system.
so did we.
Yes,
But
but
Ring,
we also want to find out if there's anything that's happening over on the third-party side, if there's some staffing issues and they haven't processed it. But so I don't have an answer today. I hope to have an answer for the next quarter's update. I did take a look through May of this year, and we're still seeing a decline. So
I guess the question would be, are we seeing a decline in our costs because of fewer alarm systems being out there operating?
We'll take a look at that too. There is a payment side to it, and I reflect it here on the table. What I didn't show was a year-to-date. I showed the annual amounts for 2016 and 17, but not the year-to-date. So not a really good comparison at this point, but I will come back with that.
It would be kind of a two-prong, not having to answer to false alarms on the police department side, not having to issue the permits because nobody's applying for them, so you save staff that way. I don't know how you would account for that.
So more to come on that piece of it. On the municipal court side, last quarter or last 2017, we reported a decline in the revenues. We're continuing to see that decline compared to 2017 as well as 2018. Looking at year-to-date through May, we're seeing the same thing, but filings continue to be down. And without the filings, that's just one aspect of it. Skipping over to page.
Is that just us, or does that include the contract cities?
That's just us, yes. Starting in 2015, we're only keeping our Lakewood revenues. The other cities are keeping their own.
Okay, thank you.
Page 30, development services, permits, and fees. I just wanted to give you an update as to where we are as of last Friday compared to where we were for the full month of year-to-date June in 2017. We're up by $346,000 or 39%. Page 48, just to highlight that the parks sales tax has increased, and on a year-to-date through April, that increase is 7.6% over 2017, and compared to the estimate at 5.6% increase. And parks recovery ratio, per our financial policies, is 45%, and on a year-to-date through first quarter, they're at 44%. But what we're seeing is some of the expenses are occurring before the event. So once we start collecting revenues on the events, we're expecting that to be more at 45%.
Is that a blended recovery ratio where, or is it applied across the board? And by that I mean, are there different elements where I just forget. Are there different elements of parks where the target recovery is
It's just
different, and
across
that's-
the board.
and that- okay, so, baseball and senior center and trails or playground equipment are all lumped together?
Yes.
And a gross 34% recovery ratio?
Yes,
Even though some of them would never expect to recover anything, and others, if you're going to senior center excursion, you expect it to be 100%.
yes, that's correct. And our policy just says 45% just blended. On page 52, real estate excise tax, we've been seeing some increases there. I wanted to give you an update through May that compared to the estimate, we're up by $466,000 or 90%. Some major transactions that we're seeing in April include the sale of quite a few apartments. So we had the Lakewood Youth Storage sell for $6.95 million. The Bridgeport Apartments sold for $3.2 million. Tudor House sold for $2.2. Biltmore Hotel sold for $2.1. And then we had the Whispering Firs at $1.8 million. And then we're seeing some high sales for the areas around the Gravelly Lake area. So we had a single-family residence at $2.1 million. In May, we had also a single-family home that was over $1 million. General Washington Storage at $1.1 million. A few more apartments that sold, Lakewood Gardens, $1.1 million. Oakland Manor at $1.3 million. And then a commercial vacant lot at Bridgeport Way that sold for $2.4 million. So this is great news because of the city's council's goals and priorities for the infrastructure. And then switching over to page 55.
Real estate agents. For real estate.
Yes, nice.
On page 55, again, to fund infrastructure, transportation projects, an update on the vehicle licensing fee through May. We're up by $10,700 or 3.2% compared to 2017, year-to-date May. And on an estimate, year-to-date estimate, it's up by $10,000 or 3%. On page 56, our hotel motel tax, we're seeing quite a bit of increase in there. And the year-to-date increase is primarily due to the Biltmore Hotel. And even though that sold, there was an audit that generated some revenues for the city. And that's done by DOR, it wasn't initiated by the city. Days Inn of Lakewood and Lakewood Hospitality or Town Place Suites contributed to the increase as well. And then I want to skip over to page 65. At the 2017 year-end report, Councilor Boki had a question on the specialty units and why their actual was so much greater than the budget for 2017. We're seeing the same situation for 2018. And really how this works for the police department is when we did the budget for 2017 and 18, I based the position budgets based on whoever was in the position at that time. That's like your best guess on where these positions are. Then the departments are allocated 116 positions. And chief can move positions around. So from an operational standpoint, if there is no position budgeted for specialty units, but he wants to put somebody in there, he can do that as long as he stays within his allotted budget. And so for the specialty units, what they have in budget for 2018 is overtime, holiday comp, cash out pay, and that's pretty much it. But what they don't have is positions budgeted in that. And in 2018, we have 2 employees who are working in the specialty units. Their budgets are sitting elsewhere. So you'll see some budgets that have savings in salaries and benefits, and then you'll see some that are exceeding. And from a year-to-date budget estimate within the police department, overall, they have savings on the personnel cost. So it's just a matter of, do we want to take those positions, count for them every time they move into another assignment? And we're not doing that. We're just looking at it overall. Do they have the positions that the city council authorized, and do we budget for that? And we did. So that concludes my presentation for first quarter.
Questions from Ms. Kraus? Mr. Branstetter?
Ms. Kraus, when we did our strategic plan earlier this month, one of the goals under was to develop the community dashboard with some key indicators that we would look to be able to make easily put out and visible to the community. And this report here today is sort of a dashboard for the 7 of us, but it isn't what would meet the expectations of what would we. So what would be the dashboard elements out of the budget update that we would be looking to incorporate into a dashboard that someone would go and look for, that we would want to put in front of the public to assure them that we're doing well in these areas and that there are other areas that we're working on?
Okay, sure. So some of the dashboard items would include things that would start on page, page 60. So the different taxes, what we're seeing from, say, 2016, 2017, where we are year-to-date for 2018. The major revenue categories: development services fees, the franchise fees, intergovernmental, page 63 of your packet. Yeah. So there would be more broader categories, and those broader categories are the ones that are in blue. Same on the expenditure side, it would be by department, what they spent on a quarter, total department, not including the different divisions. The dashboards would also include operating revenues versus operating expenditures, what that operating income or gap would be, ending fund balance in the general fund, and compared to that to the policy. Some other areas would include our what is our total debt service, our debt service per capita, the number of grants that we maintain, and the dollar amount of the federal and state grants. And that just kind of gives you an idea of how much funding the city is receiving from external sources, and some other areas. Those are primarily the areas for the dashboards as it relates to finances.
And I guess that sounds true. It also sounds long. A long list in terms of a dashboard that we want to put out for the public to look to, it's something, because it's a goal and a strategy we want to pursue. You could think about it. What is the key things that we need to tell our story to the community, and how to do that without. Because there are obviously some of these documents are, the person who's really interested can go and find all these numbers and be able to go and do that. But the person who wants to look at a dashboard and be either reassured or alarmed, would want to look for something different. And so across the whole city, as we're looking at the dashboard, we want the dashboard to be as concise with really key things that would communicate the city's status transparently without being too much in depth that will discourage reading them.
I guess I should also say that that is the laundry list of dashboards. And so what we're going to be doing as an executive leadership team is to review all of that and determine what best fits from an external side.
Mr. Bulkey.
Can we go to Fund 105, property abatement and rental housing, which is 68 in ours and 65 in the regular? And so you put both property abatement, which is a older, we've been doing that for a while, with rentals, housing safety program. And that's fine. I'm guessing you're keeping the funds separate though within that fund?
Yeah, so I
So
added.
how do they look? Because when I look now, I see abatement charges. We've brought in about 22,000, but we've spent 70,000 on abatement, so.
Sure. So
how
I,
are we doing?
what I did for the first quarter, actually I started this in the 2017 report. If you look at page 35 of your packet, it breaks out what portion belongs to property abatement and what portion belongs to rental housing safety program. So on the property abatement, on page 35, revenues coming in at 22,000, expenditures coming out at 70,000. However, we started with the beginning balance of $143,000, and City Council authorized $250,000 coming in from the general fund to address the property abatements. And then following that, you'll see the rental housing safety program. We started with the beginning balance of $104,000, and that was based on the revenues that came in, including the subsidy from the general fund. Revenues came in at $22,500, operating expenditures at $29,500, leaving an ending balance of $97,000. So even though that the funds are mixed, we are separate them.
So, property abatement fund is, we've got receivables out there, Mr. Gum shows us that, so we would have to factor that in, correct? I mean,
Yeah, and
we're showing a loss for the year.
what you'll see, that's gonna be more apparent as we get into the budget process, because what we'll do is we'll take a look at all of the receivables, determine when we'll actually get the receivables, once you place that lien, when we would actually get that money, and then we'll program it in on the expenditure side.
Okay, so on the rental safety program right now, you're not anticipating, we've got enough in there probably for the year. We
So
won't need a general fund subsidy.
we're hoping not.
So as a follow-up to that, do we have a number or a ratio, some metric with respect to how much of our abatement is not recoverable? Because really, I look at this like a banker, where we're really making a loan when we advance money to abate something. We have great collateral, we have high interest rate, good security is a priority. And then at some point, whether it's when the property's sold or 3 years plus for foreclosure, we get most of the money back. So we have a timing issue, we have a need for a fund, but if it's going great, the way I've always looked at it, if it's going great and we want to continue, we can find an interfund loan or gross up the plot to keep it rolling. What I don't have a handle on is how much friction there is, what the net cost to the city is for the program, or is our recovery 85% or is our recovery 50%?
I don't have,
Because that's what really, in my mind, what the real budget is how much it's costing us every year, not how much we have to fund the pot with that's we're essentially advancing against a lien.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it's something that I can get together for our next quarter as an update.
Thanks. Any other questions from Ms. Kraus? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can always bring good news. We now move to a six-year information technology strategic plan upgrade. We have Ms. Kraus.
Okay, and we also have our information technology manager, Ken White, who is going to talk about the details of the project. So we came to the City Council last June and provided you an update with the six-year plan. We're back here in June, giving you an update on focusing on the 2019 and 2024 six-year plan in advance of the 2019 and 20 budget. So this is an evolving document. As we go through the budget process, as we learn more things, these numbers could change as well. But then we've also included an update on the 2017 and 18 projects, which then I'm going to turn it over to Ken to talk about those projects and then also talk about the 2019 and 20 projects. But I do want to say that in the six-year plan for 2019 to 2024, I don't have any financing sources on that table. It's basically on the expenditure side because this will all get prioritized and factored into the budget process. And if we can balance the budget, what gets in, what gets out. And so I'll turn it over to Ken.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So we'll just kind of run through the projects for 2017. So in 2017, one of the big pushes in that year was really to upgrade our infrastructure and replace the legacy equipment out there. So the first two items that you see there is the network switches and servers. I will report that all of the switches that we have throughout the city have been replaced and the servers have been refreshed and upgraded. So we're now running on current Dell and Brocade technology. So that project has been completed. The computer replacement project was one that we also started. It's a yearly project where we go and refresh desktops, laptops, tablets, that sort of thing. What we're focusing on right now is the replacement of the police officer laptops.
Sorry, if you're looking for the packet, it's on page 98.
Oh, sorry. I didn't have that number. So back to the computer replacement. So we're focusing right now on police officer laptops and some of these semi-rugged devices that they have. Those are the oldest pieces of equipment that we have that's out there right now. The other thing that we're looking at is just really desktops and where the need is. Initially, the plan was to replace desktops everywhere, but we're not really seeing desktops fail. So we've decided to really focus on mobile and tablet technologies versus desktops and replace those as they start to have issues. So flipping over to page 2. The legal workflow system and municipal court workflow systems are two of the document management projects that we started in 2017. The legal system is up and running. That completed in the third quarter of 2017, so that department is using that on a daily basis. The municipal court workflow system is the O-Court solution. That solution is also up and running, and that's used on a daily basis as well. Both of those are paperless solutions. The fiber optic connection,
Excuse me.
that was a project.
Mr. Branstad.
Just on the workflow systems there, okay? Because this is the 2017 project, and it just wasn't clear to me here and then going through the rest of the project of where you had both capital and M&O costs, that now that we've invested in the capital cost of acquiring these two systems, did the M&O costs to maintain them fall out of the IT plan and into the individual departmental budgets, or, because I didn't see them later on in the plan going out through 2024?
So in this memo, the update for 2017 and 18, we really focused on the one-time cost or the initial cost. The M&O was allocated as part of the 6-year IT strategic plan, but that becomes part of the operating budget. And that operating budget resides in information technology, and then it gets charged out to the departments. In these two, say for the legal workflow system, our first M&O payment is expected to occur in 2018, and that's just under $5,000. For the municipal court workflow system, that M&O is expected to occur in 2019 at $9,700. So those payments have not been made to date, but they will be made, and they're just part of the ongoing operating budget.
Okay, so they're part of the ongoing operating budget, but not the, they're not incorporated within the strategic plan.
They were in the initial strategic plan for 2000, the last time we did the 6-year plan, but for purposes of this update, we left it off because we were more focused on the project status.
Understand, okay, thank you.
So jumping down to the fiber optic rollout, that was really a focus to get fiber optic at Fort Silicon Park and also over at the skate park. That provided us the ability to bring in wireless technologies and a few other things out there and connect those locations to the city network. Those have been completed, and so we do have fiber that's operational out there. It piggybacks into the next one, which is the wireless access points. We initially started with a project out at Fort Silicon Park to bring Wi-Fi capabilities for vendors with mobile access and guest services out there. Once the fiber was done, we were able to put up the Wi-Fi access points, which now actually give us security cameras for police officers. We'll have publicly accessible cameras available for the public to view as well, so and a few other things out there. But both of those projects together kind of bring us our Wi-Fi and our fiber connections. There's also multiple, I think there was a question about different types of networks we have. So we have a guest network that's separate from the city network out there. And we also have a secure vendor network for vendors that are within Summerfest or other different types of programs that are going on. And then we've got the city network as well, all three of them being separate.
So they can do cashless transactions?
Yeah, so if they come out with a portable cash, you know, the little plug into a phone and whatnot, yeah, the squares, they can actually connect to the city's network. We provide guest services for the public, but then we also provide a single separate network just for vendors. And we carve off a little bit of bandwidth for them just to make sure that they have the ability to do payments. Sometimes T-Mobile, Verizon isn't the best service that's out there. So, but all three of those are separate from each other, so no crossover between them.
Good, that's great.
The next one on page, well, not sure pages for you, but the video surveillance and security camera project. That is one that we continue to work on. As of today, there's 57 cameras that we've added. It is quite a lot that we've done. We've included the O&M facility, Fort Silicon Park, the skate park. We added a bunch of cameras here at City Hall now, and also added additional cameras at the police station. And the focus moving forward is to continue to add cameras in other locations, such as the boat launch eventually, and then any other location that police are asking for parking lot security and things like that as well. But there's quite a bit of cameras that have been added to that one. The rental housing and safety program, of course, that's up and running. So it's going well on our end. As far as IT is concerned, we've kind of washed our hands of that one at the moment. We're still doing a few updates on it, but it's going well. The municipal code hosting, that was migrated off to MuniCode out in Seattle. We've got no issues with that. That project's complete. The police in-car video system, that was a project that was working in partnership with the police department, which really was the focus to replace the old legacy Panasonic cameras that were in the cars. Those cameras are no longer supported, so partnering with police, we rolled out the Coban solution out there. It's working well. The firewall replacement was actually a 2018 project that we pushed into 2017 for security reasons. We utilized some funding that we pulled out of the computer refresh project, and then that was replenished back in 2018. Those firewalls are up and running here, and the police department is scheduled to go live with 2 new firewalls at the end of July, beginning of August. And that will give us a redundant paths out of both City Hall and the police station, especially when the station is the EOC. So it makes sense to have the ability to get out there. So those firewalls will be installed in the next month or 2. The redundant voice and data circuits, this is a project that's going on right now. We're working with CenturyLink to bring in some additional circuits at the police station, and that brings additional fiber capacity, and then that gives us our redundant network connectivity throughout the city. So that one is scheduled to, again, go live end of July, beginning of August. So I completed the 2017 projects. In the 2018 projects, we've got the council chambers technology upgrade, which is here. Generally speaking, the projects are completed. I will tell you that we are looking at the microphones that are used in the study session, these ones here. Tomorrow at 10:30, we've got the vendor back out to bring in some different mics to test so we can turn on the overhead speakers again and make sure that everybody can hear when you guys are sitting here, and then also from the city manager standpoint behind us, and then the front of the audience as well. So that's a project for tomorrow. We're hoping that that'll be in place in a couple weeks. So we'll do something there for you guys. The broadcast streaming council meetings, at the moment, we have no expenditures in that one. Right now, we're using the free service from YouTube, and it works well. So we're just moving forward without doing any type of service and subscription with a third-party vendor, just using YouTube. That ties right into the city's Facebook page, the city's website, so it works well. Business continuity plan is one that we are getting ready to start up, and part of the reason on the delay of that one is just waiting for all of the different circuits to be installed so we can start working on that plan. It's kind of hard to do that when we don't have everything completed, so that'll be a 2018 project in the fourth quarter. Same with the disaster recovery co-location. Once the police circuits are installed and the firewalls are up, that will complete that location. Wireless access points, we'll be looking at adding additional wireless access points. Right now, we're working on a couple over at the Sound Transit Station, which gives us Wi-Fi there. That gives us the capability to bring in locations where police officers can upload in their car the in-car videos. So right now, we've got that service available to police stations, City Hall, Fort Slocum Park, and the skate park. The next step will be the transit station. The website enhancements and upgrades. Right now, we are working with a communications manager, Bryn, on doing an update to the website, so you'll be hearing more about that from her, but that's something up and coming. The redundant voice and circuits are, again, it's just a continuation of last year's project, bring it into the police department. I will say that we have redundant voice circuits right now, so in the event of a disaster, we do have voice at the police station, and then in July and August, we will have data as well. The task management system was a project that was carried over from 2016 to 17 and now into 18 and into 19. That really is the task management solution that the Parks and Rec Department and Public Works will be using to track their work orders through the system. So tickets that are coming in through the My Lakewood 311 system will be forwarded into a complete system that they'll be able to use mobile devices out in the field and track all of their workloads and costs associated and everything that they do today versus on paper. So we're meeting with some vendors now, so that project is picked up again. So we're hoping to get that off here shortly. And then again, this year we still have computer replacements, which is just a continuation every year that we do for those. The document management system, which is the larger project, that one is a multi-year project that is starting now as well. So we're working with vendors. We don't have a vendor selected yet, so the costs are still kind of in play. We are meeting with Pierce County tomorrow, or that's a different one, sorry. But we're looking at some different solutions for document management, so we'll have some updates for you on that one. So then in the 2019-2020 proposed projects, again, we're still looking at expanding video surveillance, and that is in areas of parks and parking lots and public spaces. And really that depends on infrastructure that we have out there and available to tap into. We've got some additional server upgrades that will be coming due, which will replace some of the initial servers that we did in 2015, and then a couple legacy servers that will be rolling out as well. There's a continuation of the computer replacement project as well. That is just another yearly refresh that we do. The permit system, which is, I inadvertently started talking about document management. That one is one that we're working on. I will say that we're meeting with Pierce County tomorrow just to kind of go over the PAL system to see what they're doing, just to kind of give us some ideas. And so we're working with Community Economic Development, Dave Viewers Group, and just kind of getting some ideas here. So I don't really have any numbers on that one, but definitely is an ongoing multi-year project for that as well. We also are looking at a new storage area network device, which is the storage solution, putting that at the police station. We are seeing our capacity increase, or the needs for storage increase in the area of video surveillance and in-car video. We're also looking at the ability of disaster recovery and bringing the same data that we have at City Hall to the police station so that we can bring up in the event of a disaster. So there's an additional need for some storage there moving forward. We're looking at some fiber installation. The last facility that doesn't have a direct connection to City Hall or the police station is the O&M shop. So we're looking at bringing fiber there and then connecting them to us. That will speed up a lot of the data services and voice services that they have now, especially when it comes to cameras. I think there's 12 new cameras that are installed as well over at the O&M facility. So that's taken up a lot of bandwidth trying to stream that stuff back here. And then we've got additional Wi-Fi access points, and that will be in partnership with Public Works, depending on where they're rolling out fiber, where we can tap into that and bring additional Wi-Fi for the public and for city staff. And then we continue again with additional down in 21, 22 with additional computer replacement. It's just the ongoing yearly replacement project. And then in 23, 24, we start looking again at computer replacements. Again, this is a fluid document, so as we move through the process, things will be added or taken away. But as we see right now, those are the main projects that we're looking at for the next 6 years.
Questions from Mr. White?
Just one.
Mr. Simpson?
Who's gonna do the vulnerability and penetration testing?
So we are partnering with a couple of different third parties to look at that. Some of the vulnerability testing we can actually do internally and use some commercial software to do that on an ongoing basis. It's the penetration tests that have to be done on the outside, partially because of the PCI compliance requirements, and then also the CJIS requirements. We have seen different municipalities start to do their CJIS audits with the FBI, so we're wanting to make sure that we're ahead of the game on that one. But it's gonna be a third party to do that. It has to be an external party to come and do that, so we can't do that in-house. And those prices are all ranging. We've got all kinds of different numbers depending on how in-depth it needs to be. So we're trying to get some clarity on what the CJIS requirements are so that we can ensure that that vulnerability and pen test that they'll do will be exactly what we don't want to do it twice.
Agreed. So 35 is basically a placeholder?
The initial estimates that we got were right at that number.
Okay.
And so now we're just making sure that with the requirements for CJIS, that number doesn't go higher. We had some other numbers that came in a lot higher than that, but we don't think we needed to do all the requirements that they wanted. So 35 is still a good number for us.
Thank you.
So we'll see.
Ms. Barth?
In the computer replacement, are we leaning more towards desktops or are we going more towards the laptops?
So one of the things we're looking at is really the needs of the department and the needs of the staff. So in the event of desktop versus laptop, it really is what is their job function. Our big push is to get laptops where they need to be and then more mobile type devices. So the smaller tablet, laptops, things of that nature. Desktops make sense for people that are always at their desk and they never leave. So those will continue to just be desktops. But we have seen a need for example, several, like Bryn, for example, laptop. We've upgraded city manager's assistant to a mobile tablet device. It's smaller, easier for her to carry, and very mobile. So we're really looking at the mobile type platform because that's where everybody's moving to. The cost for laptops still seem to be high versus what we would pay to get a smaller device. Desktops, they're a dime a dozen, $300, and you can roll a desktop out, but we're just not seeing those things break. So we just continue to run. So really, to answer your question, it's just the needs of the department, what that person needs to do their job.
Do we do iPad Pros at all, or are we strictly Windows-based?
We are not strictly Windows. We don't do iPad Pros, partially because they just don't work well with some of the tasks that staff are doing. Some of the applications that we use don't run on an iPad, so we're very limited to that, especially if it's like Eden, for example. In other areas, we do use iPads. The Parks and Rec staff use iPads when they're in the field. The plan with the task management system is that they'll have something like an iPad to go out in the field and be able to do their data entry on and whatnot, inspectors, things like that. But I don't see a large push to move towards iPads just because of the software applications that we run. So they're very proprietary Windows-only platforms. Now, if they're web-based solutions, sure, we can have an iPad with a keyboard and off they go. Kind of like what you guys have. But I just don't see the big need for that at the moment from some of the staff. And if it is, it's going to be more park staff or people that are out in the field, inspectors. They could probably use something for more web-based solutions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we move to Ms. Newton and a review of industrial revenue bond for Tactical Taylor.
evening. I have with me Maddie Merton, who is with the Economic Development Board. She also manages, will be managing this for us for the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County. So I just briefly wanted to go over what this is about. So this is basically a request for the City Council to approve a resolution for non-recourse industrial development revenue bonds in the amount of $10 million for the new Tactical Tailor facility. So as you know, Tactical Tailor is a manufacturing company that employs approximately 100 people here in Lakewood, and they are expanding and looking to acquire additional capacity to fulfill their expanding government contracting contracts and portfolio. So the City of Lakewood has been working with Tactical Tailor to move them out of the North Clear Zone to another location within Lakewood. The company is committed to staying in Lakewood due to the proximity to JBLM, their employment base, as well as favorable tax conditions for them here in the city and support of the community and the city. There is a requirement through the state RCW 3984, which requires that a proposal to issue bonds be approved through resolution through the municipality where the project is occurring. And the industrial development revenue bonds are federally authorized for manufacturing and industrial development projects. They're designed to encourage capital investment and new employment. They are non-recourse bonds, meaning that they are privately backed. They're attractive as they allow for lower interest rates on the bonds and lower financing costs for the company, and the buyer of the bonds do not pay income tax on any interest earned. The funds will be used for acquiring land and constructing a new manufacturing facility here in the Woodbrook Business Park. The project will allow the company to hire an additional 40 employees. And the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County has passed a continuing resolution to move this forward. Included in your packet are a copy of the proposed resolution for your consideration, a letter from the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County requesting the resolution, staff summary from the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County that was prepared by Maddie, industrial development revenue bond procedural flow chart, and the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County agreement to issue the bonds. We will be meeting on Thursday with the bank that will be financing the project, as well as the bond council. And once the resolution is passed, the Pierce County Council will hold a public hearing on the project and act upon the two resolutions. And that basically concludes the brief overview. We would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Other than authorizing it to go forward, what are the implications of the city council passing the resolution?
For the city, there are no financial obligations for this or any other obligations for the city, correct?
Correct.
What's their timing on the project? I mean, when are they expecting to turn
Build?
the dirt? Yeah.
We're looking at securing property within the next 6 months or so. And best case scenario would be probably within the next 12 to 18 months to begin the construction project.
Would there be an expectation or a benefit for someone from the city speaking at one of the public hearings that the Pierce County Council holds, or is that, or are those transactions pretty just pro forma?
It's pretty pro forma, but to have the City of Lakewood's being there would help. But it's typically, the Pierce County Council would have already gone through a study session before going through the public hearing, and they would have be moving towards a resolution. So, but it's great to have the support of the project.
Any other questions? Thanks again.
Thank you.
We now move to a review of the military influence area contract for services. And we have, for this we have Mr. Adamson, who is actually camouflaged as Sarah Luna. So
I believe he's on his way, sir.
Would you like to join me?
Come on up. I spent too much time with Mr. Adamson last week. I'd rather have him hear from you.
I need to move. Okay, I really don't know where Bill's at, so I'm supplementing or in for Bill's replacement for this evening. And we are talking about the JBLM.
Speak of the devil.
Okay.
I was about to say it was the fifth on here. Usually doesn't even have to show up till 10 o'clock, so.
Come on down.
Sorry.
He was really early.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really, really
So,
Like
I said, I don't know where Bill's at, as far as I got.
Okay. So, the military influence area overlay and assessment and a lighting study were two products that came out of the 2015 JLUS. Strategy 15 out of that JLUS was specific to the lighting study, and strategies 9 and 10 were in more general. So we have talked with the Prime, which is White and Smith Planning and Law Group. They worked with us previously on the North Clear Zone project, and they also have the contract that we awarded 2 weeks ago on the JBLM Land Exchange business plan. So he's very familiar with our area. This team, for this particular lighting study, has Monrad Engineering. Now, Monrad is a national expert, and we're going to get into that a little bit here. But he's been around working this for 40 years. He's got a team of astrophysicists and electrical engineer type people that are top notch. And I didn't intend to get too much into the MIAO because the purpose of today's briefing is just to get council approval for the city manager to sign the contract documents. But we can go into it as much as you want. So here are the 3 JLUS strategies I talked about. This is a direct lift out of the JLUS of what those 3 strategies are. We're doing a lot of number 10 with the North Clear Zone, but this will broaden it into other areas. And the lighting study is something we haven't attempted here in this area before.
And the lighting study is beyond the city of Lakewood.
The lighting study is for the entire SSMCP region, so Pierce and Thurston County. And wherever there's an intersection of military activity with community activities. So the military training routes for rotary wing aircraft extend all the way down to Chehalis. They do touchdowns and up. Sometimes they go up into the Mount Rainier area, do touchdowns for high altitude training. So we're going to take a look at all of that. Potentially even the routes to Yakima could come into play here. So this is what an MIAO is. I'll let you read that in yellow. So we're intending to get a report from them with graphics overlays. It could be stratified, so you could have a noise overlay, a lighting overlay, a road overlay, all that kind of stuff. And then task 2 to the MIAO is specific to the lighting study. So this is how this contract team has broken down the tasks. We've worked with makers previously as well. They were on the JLUS team, that did the 2015 work. They were not the prime, but they were involved in that work as well. And they also did the research for us on the North Clear Zone project. So they went out and looked at, in that particular case, 130 different JLUSs that had been completed across the country, found that 27 of them were associated with clear zone problems. And then we got to look deeper into what those other jurisdictions and other states were doing with their clear zone. I'll tell you, Lakewood is the lead in the nation right now in clear zone resolution, and that came straight from the director of OEA at a ADC conference. So we're doing quite well, and the city's being recognized for it. Let me get a little bit more into this Monrad guy, because he was really special. So he belongs, he's like the president and the board chair of two different associations, the Illuminating Engineer Society and the International Dark Sky Association. And they have produced this user's guide on a model lighting ordinance. I added this wording straight from the scope of work to the right of that cover sheet because he has been developing jurisdiction-specific lighting ordinances for other places in the country. Heavily involved in Arizona, Southern California, and some other places, but we've even seen satellite shots from this team of our area, how the light is impacting it. So this could be a really good thing for us. This has obviously been out for about 7 years now, but they continue to tailor it to jurisdiction problems. It's going to be hard to read. It's a real eye chart, but this is the project work schedule. It extends out until the end of May when we should have completion on this. We would intend to brief this product to both council and to the at least the steering committee of SSMCP, potentially the EOC, because it does impact the entire SSMCP region, so there might be interest in that. We would intend that the contract team would meet with jurisdiction representatives, especially when they start talking ordinances for lighting. And this is the project cost schedule. There was a discrepancy. What was originally submitted in their proposal was slightly different than $299,832. This is actually $25, I think, more than their original proposal. But that's because we refined some of these tasks since the RFP was completed. So the contract price is actually this $299,832, and OEA has given us a grant for $300,000. We actually, if you combine it with the JBLM land exchange, we have $450,000 this time.
Ms. Moss.
Real briefly, the lighting project that you referred to, is that just in the clear zone areas or is it extended?
No, ma'am, that goes all the way around the perimeter of the base and could extend even farther. If you might recall that for the 2015 JLUS, it was a 2-mile radius from the fence line all around JBLM. That's what was decided we would look at. That's pretty good for noise, but for lighting, maybe not. For some of these other things about helicopter touchdown points and stuff, 2 miles isn't good enough. So this is going to look way into Thurston County, around Yelm, City of Roy, Rainier, some of these places that are where the helicopters are doing night vision training. They do a lot of flying in the South Rainier training area, and the pilots are complaining about light pollution. So that's one particular area that we're going to focus on.
Thank you.
Mr. Branstetter.
So in one of the slides, it mentioned proposing lighting ordinances and things like that for communities that don't have them.
Right.
And I'm not particularly recalling seeing that in our code or comprehensive plan around lighting as it ties into JBLM. So we fall in that category of where this study will inform us and will end up with us,
yes,
in accordance with the JLUS recommendations, putting something in our code that'll impact lighting in commercial and residential areas of the city?
I think that is the case. What they showed us for some examples had to do with shielding of lights, and changing the type of bulbs that are used. And you can see a profound difference when a shielded light, you don't have this incandescent light going up into the sky. It's shielded and focused down on the ground where it is. It makes a big difference. I don't know that that's going to be a solution that's proposed, but that's something they showed us in their presentation to get hired.
When all this is said and done, you're going to end up with a whole series of land use recommendations that will speak to a variety of subjects. That's going to go to the JLUS Implementation Committee as well as these other groups. But the intent is that these recommendations will actually be followed up with new regulations for those cities and counties within the study area.
So we have heard that over the next 18 months, our Public Works Department has some projects that involve putting in new street lighting and things. So are we concurrently, without waiting for the end of this, looking at making sure that our designing is likely to be compatible with what this finds out, or that it's not going to be significantly incompatible?
Not sure yet. I will say this, that, this is mirroring the Title 18A update, so I see that coming in at the same time in that period. We can certainly, once we have an idea of what these lighting studies look like, can speak with Public Works and see if we can't plan for certain types of lighting if necessary. I just don't know at this moment, Mr. Branson.
And I guess it would also then impact private development.
Yes.
If that comes in for permitting and type things that would do that.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
So we'll be asking for council's approval for the city manager to be able to sign this contract. I think that'll be a motion until 2 July.
And it's similar where the city's the fiscal agent for the SSMCP grant.
Right.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much. Now move on to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
To ring, blow, whistle.
That was quick.
Sound reveille. Where would you be without your assistance?
I would be nowhere.
Duly noted.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members.
We can meet tomorrow morning at 04:30 if you want to make this.
That's fine.
I
I'm
can be
good.
there. I can be there.
He would like to
I
be
have to
there.
be up at 04, buddy.
03:30.
That'd be fine. Then I could take a break and go work out. Then come back.
Seriously? They'll give you a break to go work out? Because I'll be here at 04:30 if you want.
We'll talk afterwards. So, a few updates for you. Adult Family Home Business update. So, early this morning, a couple of Department of Corrections officers came to the city wanting to get some information on a particular adult family home business located in the 6800 block of 86th Street, which is off of Custer. And one hand, it's not in Oak Brook, but it's in Lakewood. And the proposal apparently is to house 3 violent sex offenders currently on McNeil Island and have them move to this location. So these 2 officers are doing their due diligence. Long story short, Mr. Buer and Ms. Cassidy outlined the moratorium we have in place and the lawsuit that we have with DSHS and things along those lines. The 2 officers like, okay, got to go back and talk to our supervisor, so that's where they are. What they also communicated is their job right now is just looking at the site. In order for these three individuals to be released and to be placed there, a Superior Court judge is going to have to rule on that. And so if and when it gets to that point, our Assistant City Attorney, Ms. McCain, will be there, among other things, protesting that.
Just a point on that, after you informed me this today, I checked with Senator Steve O'Ban, who had been one of the sponsors of the fair share legislation that DSHS works to circumvent.
That's right.
And
County of origin.
What?
County of origin.
And he was a bit perplexed at the report that Department of Corrections had come out because McNeil Island is DSHS.
So they're actually, so the Department of Corrections officers are actually loaned to DSHS. So we learn that later on in the afternoon. That's correct.
So this is actually, when you say the Department of Corrections, it's DSHS attempting to place McNeil Island sex offenders in an adult family home.
So it's a work.
I think it should be communicated in that manner.
It's a work.
So,
Stairs right there. Still.
So the current adult family home business that they want them to place them in does not have a city business license. They don't have a city business license. However, they are licensed by the state, and they have one resident, a 25-year-old male. We were able to find out from two officers that two of the three sex offenders are not from Pierce County. I can't recall whether or not, but they're not from Pierce County. Actually, I think they're from the east side. Do you have it? Thurston, Spokane. Thank you. Thurston, Spokane County.
They need to be close to their families so they
I
can.
agree with you, Councilmember. I agree. That had us quite busy most of the day dealing with that. So every time we turn around, DSHS is trying to stick it to us again. Western State Hospital, you might have seen in the news today that they lost their certification. They're going to lose $53 million annually. Basically, the federal Health and Human Services Department terminated their Medicare provider agreement because they weren't able to show compliance with the 26 certification conditions that they're required to comply with. The good news is they complied with 22 of them, but they fell short on 4. They've been working on this for a good number of, a little over a year, maybe 2 years. Got a call from Western State Hospital earlier this afternoon, just as a courtesy update that this was coming. I did inquire, hey, what are you going to do with how are you going to mitigate the $53 million loss? What kind of impact is that going to have on Lakewood, on our community, on your programs, et cetera? And the report I got back was that DSHS has over $1 billion budget, and so they'll be able to cover that, not just for this year, but for next year as well. So as far as providing services at Western State Hospital, that is not expected to be impacted because of the loss of the $53 million. So that's what we have right now. They do have a new interim CEO. He's actually the current Chief Operating Officer. He's been there for a good number of years. We know him, Mr. Holt. And so I'm going to be meeting with him in early July. Actually, the original purpose of the meeting was to talk with him about getting an easement on the other side of the historical wall there that was built by the patients many, many moons ago, for us to build some kind of a meandering sidewalk or a path as part of our Stilican Boulevard project, because that's in the design phase right now. However, it looks like we'll have some other things to talk about as well. Fort Stilican Park roadway project continues. Knock on wood, it's expected to be open on Friday, if not Friday, first thing on Monday. There was a question that Councilmember Simpson raised last week regarding who's responsible for vehicle accident cleanup. If a tow company does respond and is towing away a vehicle, according to state law, it's the tow company. We haven't really experienced any issues there. I know you had passed one on to us, so we're going to do a gentle reminder to the companies that, hey, if you're out there. Now, in the event that a tow company doesn't respond, typically the city will go out there and clean it up. However, that's very, 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 very rare. Matter of fact, we can't even think of the last time that happened. But if the tow company does respond, they are responsible for cleaning it up. If not, the city does. Today, Sound Transit facilitated a meeting regarding the allocation of their system access funds. They have $100 million that they're going to be distributing over the next 3 to 4 years in $25 million increments, and having it equally distributed to the 5 sub-areas within their jurisdictional area. Pierce County is one sub-area, there's 3 sub-areas in King County, and Snohomish County is one sub-area. So it's $25 million that eventually our sub-area will, or $20 million that our sub-area will get. However, the first line of funding and applications is going to get underway here shortly in the latter part of 2018. That's what this kickoff was, for $5 million, and then maybe another $5 million next year, and then 2 to 3 years later, another $5 million, and another 2 or 3 years after that, the final $5 million. So our public works folks were down there, and I can tell you what the money can't be used for. It can't be used for planning studies, nor can it be used for new parking stalls for new vehicles, new vehicle parking stalls. However, what it can be used for are sidewalks, bike lanes, shared use paths, bus rail integration, and new pickup and drop-off areas. So for Lakewood, that's in and around the Lakewood Transit Center. So our public works folks are going to look at some ideas and some options there in terms of what we can apply for. Again, the applications are expected to open up later this year, with the first award expected to occur in the early part of 2019.
So would you interpret around being where we're thinking about in the downtown, close to the transit center, looking to create a green loop?
We were told it has to be Sound Transit. So that's a Pierce Transit facility. I know Sound Transit buses roll through there.
Yeah, I mean, the 574 route
Yeah.
is a terminus for it.
So is the idea to kind of continue to extend
Allowing people to have access.
sidewalks,
Yeah.
bike lanes, farther from in particular, they're talking about the transit, whatever we call that, the rail station.
Yeah, the sounder station. Yeah, but remember, it's $5 million for the whole county. So, however, what it can't be, and another thing it can't be, there's no set aside for Sound Transit. So none of it can, so Sound Transit can't apply for it. So just the cities and counties.
Go to, put someone's down 47. Cost of the bridge between the house.
Pierce County, their sewer connection fund application period closes this Friday, June 29th, and so we're going to submit a couple of grant applications in support of 2 sewer projects. One is North Thorn Lane Sewer Extension, which will actually also get sewers into Harry Todd Park, and then the second is Fort Steilacoom Park. The county allocates $250,000 a year. We understand that there's been an accumulation of monies that haven't been allocated over the years, so they're up to they have about $490,000 or $500,000. So we're actually going to apply for $500,000 just for North Lane Sewer Extension. So we'll give our county council member courtesy heads up that this is.
What is announced, North Thorn Lane, $500,000?
And, we're thinking about $500,000, and we're thinking about $55,000 on the sewer line into Fort Steilacoom Park.
Do we all need to nudge, or are you?
Feel free. Feel free.
We don't know who else is applying for that, though. There aren't always a lot of applications for that. Okay.
I think I mentioned to you at a previous meeting, regarding an amendment regarding motor vehicle sales, particularly used car sales in certain zones where perhaps they shouldn't be. I want to let you know that we're initiating that process and would like to bring that forward to you sooner rather than later. And unless there's any objection from this body, we'd like to initiate it through the Planning Commission beginning this summer and get it back in front of you this fall. It's getting.
They're popping up in NCs.
And so actually the biggest is process of SEPA, so we got to go through SEPA, so 60 days. But we're gonna move this forward.
That's one we could do a moratorium if we wanted to.
We could, yeah.
If we thought it was that, because we
could,
truly have it in the
could.
works that we're going to change.
Yes, you could.
Change if it's aimed at NC zones.
If you want a moratorium, just give me a nod and I'll have something in front of you. Okay.
We have what, 120 days?
6 months.
6 months. Can you do it? Shouldn't need that long. Can you do it? You can get it done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Even if you show them progress, you can extend it. Onyx Drive, I'm gonna send you a copy of the community outreach work that we did. Actually, it's gonna get presented to you as part of the reports by the city manager next Monday. I wanna get that in front of you. And if you recall, there was 6 options. Actually, there was 5 options plus 1 do nothing. And so the community was kind of split between option 1, which is, and by the way, this is between 97th and Phillips, so the whole corridor. And that option would be a combination pedestrian bike path lane of about 15 feet on one side of the road, and then just curbs and gutters on the other, but not a sidewalk. And that was the one that had the quote-unquote most votes, but only by 1. And then option 4, which is more the traditional city's code, would be sidewalks on both sides that would have separate bike lanes. And that's kind of, so that's the alternative option. So our recommendation, based on what we heard from the community, is option 1. However, you also have option 4, which I would highly suggest that the council consider that. What we're looking for is some direction on which one to move forward for. So, you can expect that as a discussion next Monday evening. The price differential, option 1 is $3.35 million. Option 4 is $3.95 million.
Which one was that, John?
Say again?
Which project was that?
Onyx Drive,
Onyx.
97th to Phillips.
So
It's a
any,
huge deal. Yeah, it's a
any
huge project.
easement acquisition necessary?
Very minimal, very minimal, Mayor.
Especially if you do one side.
Yeah, that's true. The biggest issue if you do both sides is we have rockeries and landscaping, but most of it's in the right of way. So then it's, to be good neighbors, we would want to restore that and kind of put that back in their front yards.
That's a good question.
I think I reported to you last week or the week before that out in Oak Brook, the property out there, the Ruby 62 Holdings property, 2.83 acres. So we have heard that there is a contract on the property, and it again is Northridge Contractors, a gentleman by the name of Ken Ritter, who apparently lives here in Lakewood. They're looking to close either at the end of this month or sometime in July. They've also hired Larson and Associate to begin to redesign the project. They're doing work down in South Tacoma in the Manitou area, so if you want to get an idea of their product. I'm not quite sure if that's going to be it, but
They're like
but we've heard good
$400,000
things.
houses.
We've heard good things about this developer, so.
The Manitou ones are pretty tight together. So this price is pretty nice.
We're moving forward on the Colonial Plaza project. Right now, the conversations have focused on Graymore, which is a key property owner there, and we're going to need some access to some easements and things along those lines. And so they have, generally speaking, agreed to do that, so that's some good news. We're going to be reaching out to the motel across the street and talking with them, and then Westwood Financial, we're not expecting any major issues since apparently their property is still on contract for sale, but we've been hearing that for about a year and a half. But they have a kind of a small sliver there, so we'll be reaching out to them as well. And then as we move forward with the design of that, we're going to want to bring that back to the council, probably later this summer and into early fall, to get a buy-in and buy-off from you in terms of what to move forward and what to bid out. LHAB, so we were able to secure a $12,000 certified local government grant from the State's Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, so kudos to our planning manager, Courtney Cassidy, for that. So we're going to have to now kind of do all the paperwork, the final scope of work and things along those lines. And so we're hoping that the grant work will probably kick off sometime in October.
Thank you.
I think, Mayor, did you want to talk about the trip back to DC, or do you want me to?
Sure.
Okay, I'll leave that to you. It was all good. We had nothing but good news to share with people.
It was 102 degrees and 85% humidity when we got there, and Mr. Caulfield never ceased to complain.
Never ceased to complain?
That's correct.
Didn't complain.
My mother told me a long time ago, she said, sweetheart, you find something you're good at and you stick with it, and I don't like to be uncomfortable.
That's the type of weather you're from.
That's right, from, that's right.
That's a key word. A little bit of weather like
But somebody had, we had, because sometimes these meetings get a little stale, so somebody had to keep things going a little bit, right?
Give them the company, right?
Yeah, it was
There you
good,
go.
it was all good, so, actually, we had some fantastic dialogues, we did learn a new word, de-dork, so, the Air Force is gonna look to de-dork, a situation where we need some more money as it relates to the North Clear Zone. I never heard that word before, but I think,
Somebody had the rose pin on them to de-dork the process.
To give them more money.
that's correct.
It works.
So this week, Councilmember Branstetter and I will be over in Yakima at the AWC conference. In the middle of July 14th, will be Summerfest. Also July 25th, second quarter employee appreciation event. So that's a cookout over at for Silicon Park. So what day is that? It's July 25th. I think that's a Wednesday. But last year we had a little activity. We played some kickball and stuff. So if you come out, of course, you come out and have a good time and partake in the recognition. But then please partake in some of the other activities as well. It's 11:30 to 2.
Thank you.
So if you get there, 11:45 or noon or so.
Dogs are welcome.
And so long as they're leashed.
They will be fined if they're not leashed.
Then on July 26th, there's Tacoma Pierce County Chamber of Commerce is hosting they do this once a year, but they usually do it in the morning, a city managers roundtable. And so myself and the city managers from Tacoma, University Place, Fircrest, and then the town administrators from Steilacoom and DuPont, I think, are going to be there. And that's from 4 to 7, so the event itself, the talking points is about an hour, but then there's some activity afterwards. And then, legislative retreat, October 20th. Does that work for everybody? Saturday, October 20th?
Today.
Come on.
I said today.
Come on, no, we're locking down, because we had the 13th, we're locking down the 20th.
Later, we just might as well.
I thought that was
Down there
their
in
special
Olympia.
meetings on Wednesday night where it was. What's that about then?
So Mayor, that's my report.
Okay, any questions for the city manager?
Mr. Mayor. A question and a comment. On Gravity Lake Drive, is this going to be sidewalks on one side of the street?
Yeah, there's gonna be a walking path on the inner side, on the lake side, and then there'll be a 5-foot sidewalk on the outer side, Councilmember.
And the comments that I'm getting on 112th Street, the potholes, they look nice. Thank you so much.
Well, there are no more potholes.
That's what they said.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they were appreciating the fact that they're gone.
What part of the street?
112th, I didn't
Over
say.
here or over in?
I didn't get that.
I know what you're talking about. Thank you.
But just wanted you to know that. Everybody's really pleased with what's happening in the city of Lakewood.
Unless you're trying to get from A to B,
Yes.
in which case you're unhappy.
Unless you're an adult family home business owner.
That too.
Can we talk about?
Are we making any progress on sites for libraries?
Yes, we are. Matter of fact, might have an executive session request next Monday evening on that.
Do you want to discuss the issues we have with the traffic lights for 2 weekends in a row now, on Saturdays or Sundays, when they just blink out? They go to four-way red.
Yeah, I don't know what happened last weekend. This
Okay.
weekend it happened, it was an accident. And so
The week
I'm
before,
sorry, last
2
weekend.
weeks ago.
It was
Yeah.
an accident. This weekend, I'm not quite sure what happened unless that was a carryover. So we have 2 traffic signal techs. Now, generally speaking, if a light goes out, going a 4-way is fine, but a major intersection. And so, unfortunately, we weren't able to get a traffic signal tech to come in and do it. So we're gonna be looking at some options there. Matter of fact, I have some ideas, probably not popular with folks, but they will get the job done. Including, a real simple one is, why can't all of our staff be, because we rotate on call. Why can't they all be schooled to be able to open up that box and hit the right button to turn them all back on?
Good question.
So that's my question.
So there's, if I may, there's a bit of chatter in the neighborhood association. Have you seen it?
Yes, yeah, trust it.
I know, and I have not commented on it, but something to the effect of how ridiculous it is that you can't go from one end of the city to the other without stopping at every single stoplight. And I know we're synchronized.
Yeah, yeah.
But apparently, we're synchronized to stop at every light. I mean, that's what the chatter is. So could we maybe take a look
Yeah,
at it
I've actually,
again?
yeah, I have asked our folks to take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've gotten some complaints on that.
Okay, because I know that when we first got the new lights, we were synchronized, but I don't know if it,
Yeah, I wonder with the construction that we've had,
Yeah,
we've got new lights going.
On Still Looking Boulevard, that has played into it because of the construction.
and if you need me to pull that, I can pull the chatter and
Oh,
send it to you.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
But reading it, I get upset.
I know.
We'll go to council comments, Ms. Moore.
Almost, yeah, I've almost confirmed it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes, it suddenly got mixed up with all the weekend traffic lights, we just took care of that. Oh, I brought it with me, this I remember and didn't lose. Mr. Simpson was there with me at the PSRC meeting, so we approved the list that was to go forward, and so we've got money in that list for Steilacoom Boulevard right-of-way, paving on Pack Highway, South Tacoma Way, right there south of 512 to 108, those two blocks, but very, very well used. And I think some planning money for farther up on South Tacoma Way.
Yeah, to the border of Tacoma.
So that passed, nobody moved any, there was no jockeying for position or anything like that, no amendments, so that should be taken care of, and that, yeah. I don't think there was any other, they are going round and round over, they wanna do a PCRC 101, but they seem to be kind of running in, that was what they were asking about when they were asking about the free days at McGavock. And they kind of keep running into our property, what's the one Tiffany's doing? The planning 101, and so I don't know what their case, I don't know why they can't find separate dates to do it, but isn't that what you?
Well, ours has been shifted. Didn't I see an email today that we're gonna have that for city officials to come in and get an idea of planning? I think that's been moved from the 6th to the end of the month of September.
And this is gonna be Thursday, the third Thursday in September. This will be the regular meeting at the Puyallup Pavilion.
Yeah.
The reason they're doing it is there's so many new people at PCRC. I went for years with all these same guys, and then last year, like 8 mayors lost or didn't run. So they have all these newbies sitting there, why are we here, what are we doing? And so, which I still, I've been going for a while and I still have those questions, but anyway, they're gonna try to answer them. I shouldn't be nasty. Okay, that's it.
So is there any PCRC side chatter or amongst folks that are there about becoming our own MPO?
Yeah.
I mean, is there any sentiment in any direction out there?
I'm not sensing it. Nothing the other night got said.
Not directly. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think
I think I said to Paul, I said at one point, why are they backing away from the subject that you just raised? But Paul is correct, there was no direct conversation But I sensed that, in fact, I turned to Paul after and said, why are they not willing to talk about the 800-pound gorilla standing in the room?
The county exec is gonna be the chair next year, right? And that's, so nothing's gonna occur before he gets there, because it would be embarrassing, I think, to him. And frankly, I don't know, I mean, I look at the vote on the giving $2 million to Pierce Transit rather than moving it into roads. In those small towns, some of whom I don't even know if, I mean, we get a lot of transit from Pierce Transit. And I was ready to vote to move those $2 million into roads that would have helped these little towns. And these little towns rallied to Pierce Transit, from Buckley, places that don't even get the service, where we've got to save this. And so I take that as a measure of the smaller cities are just not prepared to make those kind of moves. They just don't know what's at stake. But to be perfectly honest, I just don't realize, I don't think they realize what's at stake. And I'm assuming all along that us, DuPont, and Stillicum are ready to make the move. So this part, and maybe University Place.
Maybe Puyallup.
And maybe Puyallup. But the rest of them just seem like if somebody tells them better not do that, they're not gonna do that. Tacoma's not there either, I don't think.
Tacoma's not there yet, and in order for it to happen, Tacoma would have to be on board, and the governor would have to be on board. And one of those is not there yet, the other one is probably never will be. So you have to have somebody else in the governor's office to make that happen. Mr. Francis.
Thanks, Mayor. The Planning Commission took action on a resolution to send to us their recommended proposal on the downtown sub-area plan. Their recommendation includes which option to choose and also a formula for the transportation fees to go with for development that are not impact fees, but they look like impact fees, okay? Their proposal includes a percentage of the street infrastructure that's needed that should be covered by those sorts of costs. But they also had a number of things that, while they didn't want to include those details in their proposal, they wanted to be able to voice them at a joint meeting with us. So the intent is that we're not just going to get their piece of paper with their resolution, but they're looking to have they're going to bring it to us and have a joint meeting where we can talk with them about, okay, well, what did you really like about this? Why did you choose this option and that option? And they had some things that they thought they could better explain in that thing over there rather than trying to reduce to words to put into a resolution to us, knowing that we're going to have to, essentially going to point us at which details they think we should look at. That's all I have to say.
Martha.
I'm good. I will be gone for the next 2 Mondays. So, sorry.
Meet me on that time.
Yeah,
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going there for the parade.
Good for. You want to borrow the city's garrison flag to hang on the bank?
We have one.
Okay.
But thank you for the offer. Yep, we have one.
So, is the comment I would like to make on transit, just as an aside, so I'm waiting to try to break out of Seattle. The minor thing I did in the last week was I went up and met with a consul general from Korea regarding my day job, and also as mayor, welcoming a relatively new consul general, and encourage him to participate down here, which he is. He had just played golf at Tacoma Country Club after the Korean, a Asian Pacific Cultural Center's Korean wedding event. And thought highly of the area. But I'm sitting there trying to get out of town in the hour, 45 minutes it took me to get back from Seattle from a half-hour meeting. And there are 4 lanes of traffic headed toward this is the way you get back to the freeway from just north of the downtown core. The left lane, the full original traffic lane, is a bike lane. The second lane is a share lane for bikes and traffic and cars. The third from the left is the car lane, which needs to get over to the right to get onto the freeway. And the next lane is the transit lane, not even an HOV lane. It's just a pure transit lane. So there are 4 lanes, 1.5 of which are really devoted to vehicular traffic, as you're gridlocked trying to get through.
Frustrating.
It's my social commentary for that.
It's frustrating,
I visited Forest Silicon Park. If you haven't, go see the new asphalt curbs and things progressing with the pavilion. It looks like it's going to be in rough. I don't know how we're going to do that, Mr. Caulfield, for the Summerfest with the new landscaping. Is it all going to be police taped off? Yeah, that'll be police taped off. We'll use the pavilion, but the people will be stood off, or?
Are you worried about the hydro?
Yeah, so, yeah, because they're hydro seeding. We had suggested that they put down sod. We even got a quote for them, but the latest I heard is they're going to continue to move forward with the hydro seeding, so there's not going to be much grass out there by Summerfest.
And then,
It'll just get trimmed.
yeah, and all the, all the sidewalks, we got like 10 feet of hydro seeding that's going to take place.
Yeah, where the road was, yeah, so hopefully people will stay off it and, yep.
Hoping, okay. The ADC conference and hill visits. So on Monday, I was in New York for my day job. I drove down to DC, met up with Bill Adamson, attended Tuesday's second day of the Association of Defense Communities Conference, and a little on Wednesday, which is a half day before we went into Hill meetings. It's informative, good interaction with some of the people that we deal with. One of the better interactions was a chance meeting at the reception that Bill and I had with Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, Henderson, who is he's an Army civil engineer colonel who had been General Lanz's chief of staff out here and had previously been deployed out of JBLM as a brigade commander.
Wow.
Has really good feelings and great familiarity with this. Now, this is an Army guy on the Air Force side, and so that leads to some humorous things. But he understands the Army side of the joint basing, and he's the installation guy for the Air Force now. So that in itself is progress. The fact that Bill Adamson knows the jargon and came cut out of the same cloth as an Army engineer, and in the fact that he's, I guess, his son is a real good friend of General Lanz's son, who's my neighbor. So we plan to go out to try to get the Lanzes together for dinner. He gets out to visit JBLM. So that was worth a day in itself. But we ended up spending a Hill Day and a DOD Day. We met with Senators Murray and Cantwell, Congressman Heck, Congressman Kilmer in private meetings and with their staff. Met with Congressman Smith's chief of staff and the senior staffer from professional staff from the House Armed Services Committee. We also met with both Army and Air Force installation and DoD installations people and REPI rep, or director, in addition to OEA. So it was kind of slammed meetings. The primary areas of conversation centered around the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. That has a bucket of money for off-base infrastructure. The Think Commute Act, it's a little broader because it can be used for infrastructure such as sewer lines and fire stations that serve the base. But it's primarily a road. We had heard 6 months ago from Senate Armed Services staff, they expected a bucket to be created in markup. Instead, what happened was it wasn't markup. The House put in both the bucket, the program, and $100 million. The Senate has put in a bucket and $20 million. It will go to conference. There are two, so it looks like it's going to go through at least the bucket. How much is in it, if anything, is a question. Remember, that's the NDAA is Authorization Act. It's not the appropriation. The defense appropriation currently has 0 in it. So it has to go through authorization and the appropriators get it. Congressman Heck has submitted an amendment to the Defense Appropriations Act that for $36 million, because he had to find it somewhere else, I guess, shifting. So we'll see where that goes. $36 million isn't a lot, but it's a start, and we've got something that's virtually shovel-ready and will probably meet whatever criteria. We don't know what the scoring criteria is because until they pass it, they haven't told anybody to make the rules. Then they'll make the rules, then we'll apply, try to be first in line. But in any event, Washington Boulevard project has some future in that regard. We also went over to land swap and learned more detail about the administrative path that has to take through the Army. The good news there on the clear zone in general is that the REPI people, that's the environmental thing, have told us that they have $1.5 million in match funds sitting there designated for this project.
Seriously?
We need 6. So we need, so they're contemplating that $1.5 million would come from Air Force O&M. Air Force O&M says we have money in the pot at the end of the year. We don't know if we can get there fast enough. So that's 1.5 and 1.5. The Tactical Tailor ask is $5 million plus $1 million for relocation and remediation. So you need 6. So we're working on the Air Force to get that $1.5 million up, or we get 3, and I think REPI has enough funds at the end of the year. There isn't that much competition, so we can get there, and there may be even ability to carry over into the next year and get us another REPI grant. And they have cleared up before they said we couldn't use it. Everybody seems to be on the same page and said, yes, you can for particular properties once it's straddled the line. Don't ask me why, but it's bureaucracy in action. But Bill Adamson is amazing in understanding and negotiating through the maze, and we have help. That D. Nord came from Assistant Secretary Henderson, and he just told one of the Air Force guys to figure out, make it happen, as far as clearing the path, not putting money in the boat. But and trying to make the time frame. So I wouldn't say all is good, but much progress. We also discussed the Amtrak station study. Senator Cantwell, we haven't seen it yet, have we?
The signatures are being routed in.
Yeah, she's routing the letter around. And everybody that we talked to is gonna sign off. We still have that 20-mile between station issue with Amtrak, and we're gonna try to see what we can do to accept our way around that. I would note, just as in the mildly amusing category, I've now met with Senator Cantwell, I don't know how many times. Jake Johnson was with us, our federal lobbyist, and he asked me when we left, if I saw what happened. And the first part kind of went by me. She said, she gave you a compliment. She said, well, anytime that happens, Angel loses its wings. This doesn't do that. And I said, well, what I noticed was at the end of the meeting, she actually smiled at me. And he said, that's a sign of the apocalypse. So, but that meeting I thought went well, but she's on a different track sometimes.
That's polite.
But she focuses on detail, but if she's on your side, it's a really good thing. That was pretty much it. There's no NDA, EDC meeting. So that's where I was last week, and I'm glad I live in this Washington. Anything else, Mr. Caulfield? We're adjourned.
You have a challenge. I need more of these in.
So yes, we have a Garrison.